All right, folks, it's time for the news, and we'll be covering some different news items. And we've got a special guest as well, and they'll be sharing their story and their book and all along those lines. But first, let's get to the news items and all along those lines. London's Heathrow Airport closed all day Friday after a fire caused power outage. So, definitely, Heathrow Airport closure wreaks havoc on travelers worldwide. So, that is something that folks are talking about in the news and all along those lines as hundreds of millions of pounds in losses expected as the disruptions extend beyond the Heathrow airport. And Sudan's military says it has retaken the Khartoum Republican Palace, which definitely is one of the seats of power in that area. So they're saying that they retook the presidential palace, but the RSF militia is fighting back and everything like that. So definitely that is another part of the world that is in conflict and in turmoil. Netanyahu fired the Israeli intelligence chief, deepening the domestic turmoil in that area. So Democratic Chair Golan welcomes court injunction against Barr's dismissal. So definitely that's something going on as the judge freezes the firing of the intel chief who's investigating Netanyahu's aides. And Russian drones hammer Ukraine's Odessa as Czech leaders are visiting. So the Ukraine port city is on fire after a massive Russian attack as Trump projects optimism ahead of the peace talks. So Russia continues strikes on Ukraine as the drones hit Odessa overnight. So that's something else that we're seeing in the news as well. And Israel threatens permanent control of Gaza area unless Hamas releases the hostages. So Israel defense minister threatens to seize additional territories in Gaza. So definitely that's something else going on in the world as well. And Hamas says it's still discussing U.S. envoy Witkoff's Gaza proposal. So Hamas is studying the U.S. bridge proposal on ceasefire as Israel escalates and all along those lines, returning to war. So Hamas is willing to accept any proposal in exchange for a ceasefire resumption. So definitely it looks like that is some other talks that are going on in the ceasefire lanes and all along those lines. And Israeli troops enter northern Gaza. Hamas is retaliating with rocket fire. So definitely that's something that folks are paying attention to as well. And the EU slams the door on the US in a colossal defense plan. Europe launches a defense push amid the Russian threat and the US worries. So definitely it looks like Europe's arms makers have ramped up their capacity in that area. And apparently, Indonesia's new military law is alarming pro-democracy activists and rights groups. So, Indonesia law giving armed forces bigger role in government, and that is sparking anger in that part of the world. And Germany's big spending splurge gives EU the jitters. So it looks like there's some jitters throughout the world and everything. So Germany set for €1 trillion defense and infrastructure splurge. So the German upper house of parliament okays a debt reform and a $500 billion fund. And thousands rally outside of the Istanbul city hall for the second night over the mayor's arrest in that area. So Istanbul mayor's arrest throws Turkey's Kurdish peace bid into doubt. So definitely a lot's going on in that area, including the EU leaders vowing to continue backing Ukraine but make no concrete pledge. And the U.S. has declared 2025 as the year of the UN, I should say, as the year of glacier preservation. So here they're even showing you how you can visit one safely and all along those lines. So it says end of eternal ice. Many glaciers will not survive this century, according to climate scientists. And glacier meltdown risks food and water supply of 2 billion people, according to the UN. So that's definitely something going on in that part of the world. Let me get to some of the U.S. news, and then I'm going to bring in my special guests and hear how they deal with toxicity and all along those lines, because they have a very powerful story. I'm definitely interested in hearing more about that as well. The Pentagon has set up a briefing for Musk on potential war with China. So Musk arrives at Pentagon for a briefing on unspecified military matters. So it looks like he's going to be visiting the Pentagon to discuss China. Hedges says he'll meet with Musk at the Pentagon to discuss innovations and efficiencies. And it looks like there's still this effort to dismantle the Department of Education. So definitely it looks like that's still something that is going on as well. And some folks are wondering, particularly like those on NPR, how the education department cuts could hurt low income and rural schools. And early voting surging compared to 2023 Supreme Court election. So Musk looms large in a certain Wisconsin judicial race. So definitely looks like Wisconsin voters will be casting ballots under the national spotlight to decide the control of that particular state Supreme Court. And Greenpeace, like I said yesterday, must pay at least $660 million over Dakota pipeline protests, according to a jury's statement and everything like that. So definitely it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And a gun handling judge posts a novel YouTube dissent in a Second Amendment case. So a judge releases video of himself disassembling guns in chamber in dissent. So against a certain California court ruling. So the U.S. judge films video of himself loading handguns in chambers in dissent in a California court ruling. So that's something else going on. And Hawaii's Kilauea volcano puts on a dazzling show with lava fountains hundreds of feet in the air. As a matter of fact, they're saying it's spewed 700 feet high, leaving visitors gasping in amazement and all along those lines. So definitely looks like there's lots going on there, including Sanders and AOC telling the packed arena that Trump is screwing over the working class and everything like that. So definitely it looks like we'll see whether the left is going to have their words and how they're going to counter the Trump administration. But apparently they had a big rally that was held in that area looks like it might have been held in Arizona or somewhere along those lines to give their views of what's going on in the area. And it looks like the bird flu has definitely devastated several American farms. And I've even read somewhere that RFK Jr. was encouraging for the bird flu to continue and to even expand and everything along those lines. So we'll see what folks have to say about that as well. But get ready to get to my guest now. That was just some of the news briefs that were out there and on along those lines. And we've got Nick Palveda, the founder of the network, with me as well. And I've got Sasha, and we'll see who else joins us. But right now I'm going to get to Sabrina Ciceri. I think I pronounced that right and everything. But she is the author of the book, If It's Not One Thing, It's a Mother. And she shares how she broke free from generational dysfunction, turned trauma into strength, and built the loving family she never had. Because, I mean, it's one thing, and I don't even know how I would deal with that if your own mother ran away with your significant other and all along those lines. But that's part of her story and all along those lines. So I hope I did pronounce the last name right and everything. But I know that with raw humor and honesty, you talk about how to escape toxic relationships, and you definitely look like you went through one with your own mom, even though you later became a mother of 6, grandmother of 5, and even a nurse turned health advocate. So I'm sure some of these health stories that you're hearing out there are interesting you as well. So just share a little bit about your own background and your own story, and I'm sure that folks will be interested in learning more about your book and more about how you went through what a lot of folks probably think that they could not even survive.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, I wrote a book. I was an only child from a very young set of parents. And very early, at around the age 11, I turned into being more of the mother to my mother. She was young, and her mother had ran around with lots of men through raising her, and my mom fell right into that. Even to the one that was my boyfriend. He was young, 16, and she was 30. And she took off one day, packed her bags, and took off with him. And that was quite a shock, leaving me and dad. But I've turned those things around. A lot of self-doubt, a lot of competition with my mother, wondering if I was going to end up the same way. And I'm approaching 30 years of marriage successfully, and I have 6 children. 4 of them I've adopted, one from China, foster parented and adopted some. And I have broke that cycle and that pattern, and by choice have made a very happy life for myself.
What do you think is the keys? Because actually, we had another show. We do a show, the Coco McMillan show and everything, and she had a guest on that wrote a song called Trauma that talked about her own traumas and everything like that. So, in your story, what was the keys to getting out of a toxic relationship, whether it was with your mom or maybe there were other ones as well, because you now have had a long relationship that seems to be very successful. So, what was the keys to getting out of those toxic relationships?
Well, I think that you just kind of realize that you're going to have different phases of your life that, that goes ups and downs. And you're going to wonder if you've made the right decisions or choices to get you where you are, but you just don't give up. You understand that that changes and it comes back around and you stay the course. If you want true long-term success, you have to ride through the hard times and not just jump ship thinking the grass is always greener, because we know those of us that's lived long enough to have some experiences that that's just normally not the case. So I just pushed on and kept staying towards the goal. The goal was to have a happy, successful, relationship. And you can't just jump every time somebody says you're cute or, gives you a little bit of attention. You don't abandon your commitments.
No, that makes a lot of sense and everything. I can pick up the Southern accent, and I was born here in North Carolina, where I'm based at right now, even though I did go to school in Milwaukee and everything like that. But sometimes there are stereotypes about certain regions, and I know that the South and definitely even West Virginia and others have these stereotypes of kind of those family relationships that can be very dynamic and all along those lines. So that whole notion of like being with your cousin and things along those lines. So just wondering, how did you get out of those stereotypes, and which part of the South are you from and everything? Because I do know that there's the existing Southern stereotypes.
Yes, no, for sure. And it is, I do have to laugh about it a little bit because I am from West Virginia and my great grandmother married her first cousin. I guess it was more commonly accepted back then. And at one point, my mother had dated several people. She had dated her first cousin at one point. I don't know why that was acceptable. I never was taught that that was acceptable, really. My dad is the one that predominantly raised me and instilled the values that I have and the morals. But I think that it's our own fault, I guess, the generations in the past, because we've proven that we have done it. So now they make fun of us over it. I lived in North Carolina a little while too, Mount Airy.
Okay.
I love that area.
Mount Area, a lot of people know because of the Andy Griffin show and things along those lines. So it definitely has
Yeah.
that tie to Andy Griffin and everything along those lines. How important do you think it is for folks to have uh, that whole notion of dealing with your generational dysfunctions and all along those lines? Because I know sometimes we try to sweep those under the rug or don't want to deal with them at all. So how long did it take you to cope with that, and how long did you come to terms with it, and how did you what tools did you use to get around some of that generational dysfunction?
Well, I think that I still practice it today. The impressions that our parents make on us growing up is huge. It's imprinted in who we are, not just genetically through our DNA, but just through the day-to-day practices. And even to this day, I still remind myself that my mother has some impairments. I love her to the best that I can, knowing that she thinks differently. She doesn't do what I approve of, but she did the best she could with what she has. And somehow she's trapped in a 16-year-old mind and body, even at 70 years old. Her mind, she's still very immature, but I can't change her. I spent a lot of years trying to change her. And I think that's part of what's helped me in my relationships now. I learned quickly you can't change people. And I've not tried to change my husband or tried to change my adult children or the friends I have or coworkers, because it's useless. I just continue to work on myself. I try through faith. I am a Christian. I have faith and I stay positive and look for the good in people. I try to forgive. It's just a constant practice. There are days when I have terrible thoughts and days when I want to hide in the closet and I want to stop trying. But, that's just something I've not given myself the option of doing. I just want to keep progressing and moving forward and trying to walk in love with people.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And I know in hearing a little bit about your story, it sounds almost straight out of a country song or even a blues song, which is the kind of music that I love and everything. So I just wondered if you've ever thought about or been approached by folks that wanted to turn it into a country song, because I know that that can be a theme sometimes of country songs as well.
Oh, there could, I haven't been approached, but there sure could be one. We've joked around and saying, the title of the book came because every time mom was doing something crazy, I'd say, oh my gosh, if it's not one thing, it's a mother, so it kind of came off of something humorous and catchy. And I have been approached about maybe a movie, a dramatic movie, I guess a Lifetime something, but I don't know if anything will turn into anything, but I have found through writing the book, there's a lot more women out there and men that have read the book that say they can relate to having that toxic relationship with their parents. And some of the tips and insight I gave was beneficial. So that's my real goal, is just to encourage the people that read it.
That makes a lot of sense. What are your encouraging words about resilience and about self care? Because it seems like that's one of the ways that you got through this whole trauma and everything along those lines. So, how important is resilience and self care even in your own healing journey?
Yeah, it's really important. And exercise and taking care of my body has been a savior for me, and I learned it the most when my first set of kids, I have, the six kids that range from 33 years old all the way down to 11-year-olds. So that first group grew up and got on out. And I had dedicated my whole life, sacrificed everything, of course, to be a better mother than my mother was to me. I devoted everything to them, only for them to grow up and turn 18 and move out and not give a flip about mom anymore. So I realized that they love me, but sacrificing my whole life for them and giving myself no time was not beneficial for me, and they could care less. So I make the regular time now to go to the gym, to go get a pedicure, to squeeze in a massage, for me and my husband to take a weekend away. And I think that it's really strengthening me individually, my marriage, and also it's teaching the kids what they need to do as they get older, which is have some balance and take care of themselves, so they can better take care of the people they care about.
Yep. The Shadow, who is one of our listeners, says a good person falls 7 times daily. So, what are your thoughts around that quote and everything? Because that's what they were saying, this notion that we fall regularly, whether we want to admit it or not.
Oh, yes, 100%. I have to agree. I get up early, 4:30 in the morning, and I start making the little mistakes, or my mouth gets engaged before my mind thinks, and I say things. And you just course correct. You laugh at yourself, or you don't be afraid to say, I'm sorry. I probably say I'm sorry to my husband a couple times a day because I'm just rattling off, and then I might be too short. I'm like, you know what? Sorry, that wasn't meant for you. I think just being forgiving with ourselves and knowing that we're going to fall, but we're going to just pick back up and keep going.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and I can definitely see that in your story and all along those lines. But you're also a nurse turned health advocate, so we have a lot of people, and I'm going to bring in some of our other panelists that are in the whole notion of health and what we're doing with health and all along those lines. So, do you feel that we're doing enough with our health care and just the way that we're treating health in general? Because I mean, one of the things we talk about regularly on this show is our current health leader, RFK, and everything like that. And I mentioned that he even had talked about wanting to let bird flu spread and everything like that in order, I guess, to get maximum situations or along those lines. I'm not quite sure I understand the logic, but just as a nurse and health advocate, what is your take on how we are doing in the health situation?
Well, I definitely have not been happy for decades with the healthcare system working at the hospitals and so forth, and with the doctors. But I do see a trend of things moving. People since COVID, it was a blessing. That's actually when I launched my functional medicine business, because it was a time where people were opening their minds to taking accountability for their own health, not just relying on somebody to tell them what to take or what to do, but what part am I playing in keeping my immune system strong? There's no disease out there, even cancer, that is any stronger than our immune system's able to handle the stuff that comes into our bodies. We're fearfully and wonderfully made, and I believe that our bodies know how to heal themselves if given the support that we can give it. So, and that's becoming more mainstream. You're seeing IV nutrients popping up more and more. You're seeing some of these alternative medicines that even doctors are saying, let's complement and bring this in with your treatment. I'm happy with the direction I see things going.
Well, makes sense and everything. Are you still working in the, well, it said you're a former nurse and now more of a health advocate and everything. So what got you out of the nursing profession?
Well, it was my disappointment with what I was seeing with the piles up of medications, 22 medications, and one just treats the side effect of another. It was just layering on, and I didn't see improvement. So it was about 20 years ago, I went on a research and learning journey that led me to work with the number one healing center in the world. A lady that had founded it 70 years ago from healing herself of stage 4 colon cancer. So I started training there. I became a plant-based health educator. I started learning about hyperbaric oxygen and red light and vital nutrients. And then through all that training, that's when I launched my business in 2020. And we're right now, this month, we move into a large new building. We've really expanded. We're going to be the only one of its kind in Central Florida. So I'm really pleased to be able to reach out and help more people through what I'm doing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense in that sense and all along those lines. So for folks that are in toxic relationships and everything like that, and we've also got Nick, who is one of the founders of the network and is from Florida as well and everything like that. What is your take on what it takes to get out of these toxic relationships? So if somebody's in a toxic relationship, what advice would you give to them in order to get out of it?
Well, first of all, create some distance there. That was a real challenge, especially with me being an only child, and that's my mother. She wanted to talk to me daily, but I couldn't get any healing. I couldn't get any clear perspective. So I had to push her away a little bit. I read a book called Codependent No More. I read another book called Boundaries, just trying to get some distance there to where I could see how freeing it felt just to not have her in my life on a daily basis. And that's when I could gain perspective that I could love her and have a relationship with her, but it had to be limited. It had to be more on my terms. It couldn't be the way I wished it could be, just because it was just not a healthy relationship to be that close, and I couldn't change her.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Rick, I don't know how much you've been listening and everything, but Sabrina has written a book called "If It's Not One Thing, It's a Mother" and everything. She definitely had some toxic
Well,
relationships.
yeah, I know about Phelan because my Twitter name is Dumbass Genius, because for every smart thing I do 2 or 3 stupid things. And then I heard you talking about medicine, and you really do have to be your own advocate and do your own research. But it's super tricky because if you go to the internet is like 2/3 bullshit. Like
Yes.
our very old dog has possibly cancer, and I was buying some stuff that called Ficitin, which is a supplement that tends to keep the cancer in place. It knocks down metastases. And I ordered 3 different brands of this stuff based on how many milligrams of the drug it's supposed to deliver. I weighed each brand, each little pill. None of them could possibly contain what they claimed because they all weighed less, like 1/3. There's no regulation in supplements. And like, if you go to the internet, you get freaked out because it's tough. It's a big job.
It is. It is. There's a lot of garbage out there, and especially the supplement line. I mean, it takes a lot of work, and I have somebody committed to checking the companies all the time. They can even be good and, quality, and then they sell out to some big conglomerate, and then the quality goes down. It's very difficult. 90% of them, I think, are useless on the market.
Yeah. Well, Nick, you're muted. Nick, there you go. So now your voice is you got the bad voice quality. A little bit of a homemade network here.
Yeah, that's okay.
So what else is your book about?
Well, I mean, it's just about, raising kids, having raised 6 kids and tips for having a longer, happy marriage, and just going through my story with toxicity with the mom.
Okay, here's my question. I have a very pointed question. So you got to listen very carefully. There exists in this world a supplement, and I have looked into it, and one of my attorney friends have also looked into it, and you're probably familiar with it, called molecular hydrogen. I got a little bottle here, right? It's molecular hydrogen, right? And researching it through the National Institute of Health and other various different places, it looks like it's actually positive and healing people. So my question to you, have you explored the world of molecular hydrogen?
No, I haven't. I haven't heard of that.
My recommendation is to go look this up on the internet. Rick, and you can look it on too. Now, this is Dr. Mercola, who's a bit of a little freak, but some people don't like him because he's kind of weird. But it doesn't matter.
I know who he is.
If you look at I don't care what people think. I only care about things that work. If it works, I don't care who invented it, why it happens. And when the NIH says, hey, there's some positive things to it, John Hopkins and Mayo Clinic, who were three of my favorite places.
Yes.
Then I got to take a look at it. And the problem, as you know, in alternative medicine, there's no pharmaceutical that can control this. So there's no reason to push it. But there is absolutely no question that your body heals. I mean, a lot of what you do, it's almost a miracle. Because I just had a hernia operation, and the doctor goes, well, eventually your body will heal itself. I mean, if it doesn't, you're really screwed. I'm serious, and it isn't a fun thing to see. Rick has gone through it. They basically cut your, you know what it is. They cut you open, they throw your guts back together.
Surgery.
So, it really sucks.
It's not bad surgery. Now what they do is
I think it's major surgery, Rick. It's things.
Yeah, but it's not like, I mean, so anyway, they patch you with a little bit of plastic screen door mesh, right?
Yeah.
And that stuff 20 years ago, it was super pokey and stabby, and
right. Yeah,
but now they've made it better. So I got mesh in me, you got mesh in you.
Yeah, I'm becoming the bionic man. I even have one of my eyes had cataract surgery. I couldn't see it because I had a detached retina years ago, and they stick this lens in me, and I'm really feel bad about that because they're ripping your eyeball out and putting another thing in, and it's supposed to stay there and everything's supposed to be good. To me, that's like, really? Well, actually, it made my right eye really good. I mean, I can see good, and now it's kind of amazing.
Yeah,
so every time
it's like with we're living in a world like where 70% of adult Americans are overweight or obese, but now we have Ozempic, and America's going to start to get skinny again.
Yeah, that's a problem.
It's not a problem. I mean, it's a problem.
It's a problem for people that want that they're trying to sell these diet drinks, especially people.
But it's a problem to pay $600 a month to be skinny.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But Oprah sold Weight Watchers because she's like, well, no, we don't need,
but they're right.
Take a pill.
They're right. As a matter of fact, one thing I found out in Spain, Rick, they have no tolerance for fat people like me, and I'm going like, I'm not that far overweight. But they really, over here in Spain, they're really into making sure that you are, the first thing that my cardiologist comes in and goes, oh, you're overweight, and I'm going like, really? I said, for American, I'm not. I don't care about Americans, your BMI is too high.
We were talking about supplements. I take a ton of supplements, and I know that 2/3 of them are bullshit. They don't do anything except make you pee expensive. But have
you ever looked into molecular hydrogen? I mean,
no, I'll take a look.
Let's really take a look at it because, like I said, I'm always looking for, okay, is this garbage? But
hydrogen is really good in general. We do hydrogen peroxide through IV therapy, through nebulizing, because it's giving your body oxygen and it's cleansing. It is good. The best thing that's on the scene right now, and I'm sure you've heard of it, but you guys should look into it, is methylene blue.
No. I took that for a while. I took it, I mean, for off and on for years. And I took it because, it does a lot of stuff, and it's been used for over a century.
Yes.
But it's a crazy drug. It makes your pee greenish blue. And I guess if you take enough of it, it turns the whites of your eyes blue. And, so that was one of dozens of things. It acts as it was being investigated to help with Alzheimer's because it's a detergent, and it makes it past the blood-brain barrier and breaks up some of the gunk, the amyloid plaque. It made it into phase 3 clinical trials, but never made it to market. So I guess it didn't really work in actual people. But the deal is, it's super heavy duty. And 6 years ago, I got kidney cancer, and the first thing I thought of, I don't know what gave it to me, if anything gave it to me. I worked in bars for 25 years, maybe cigarette smoke I don't know what it was, but the thing that I cut out was methylene blue because it made me the most nervous.
Okay, well, it's healthy. The same thing with everything. You have to know for sure where you're sourcing it from. It has to be a liposomal formula. There's so many factors.
I was using fish store methylene blue, which is a bad idea because you throw it in your fish tank to kill. It kills fungus in the fish tank, but the quality control was probably not the best.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
It
so,
probably
so
would have
by,
helped
by
your
the way,
kidney.
Rick is very serious, Sabrina. If you ever Google him, he has one of the highest IQs in the world.
Yeah,
Like,
but as I say, it doesn't stop me from being
but it
stupid.
doesn't stop, and that's a real problem, Rick, because I do understand that, because I go, when I was playing chess, I was not in the top 10% or 1%. I was number 10 in the whole United States of America. I was really, really good. But see, the real problem is really, really smart, really, really good. You're still going to do something stupid. And I don't want people to expect I'm going to do things smart all the time, because it just ain't going to happen.
But why are you taking methylene blue?
I'm taking it for the activation in the cells. Its main function is to produce ATP, that energy in the cell, which is how we communicate. You mentioned Alzheimer's. That's my big focus right now, because the professionals that I work with call Alzheimer's the type 3 diabetes. I think it's completely preventable, through monitoring your sugar and so forth. And methylene blue is one of those things that will help prevent that. And I'm trying to keep the cognition. That's my main focus as I age, is I want to stay cognitively sharp, till I die.
Alzheimer's is an epidemic, and it's about to get worse because COVID adds years to your brain. If you according to one study, if you had COVID bad enough to be hospitalized, that ages your brain 20 years. So we are going to see like a huge uptick in dementia.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
I believe
great.
so.
Boy, that's something, that's something to look forward to. It's like my doctor said, one problem you have when you get older, things start breaking down, So it's much better to be young, broke, and stupid than smart, old, and definitely you don't want
I play that game with people on the street. Like I turned 65 in a couple of months, and I'm like, would I trade me for that 26-year-old like fat guy stumbling down the street? And I'm like, well, yeah, because I could put him, if I were him, I could put him on a diet.
Right. But you can't stop from getting old. And dementia is going to be a big problem. I agree. There has to be more research and more solutions to it, because I think the data I was seeing, and Rick is good at fact checking data, by the way, is there was like 1/3 of men over age 80 will get dementia. So between 80 and 90, you're heading in. Everything's a game of numbers, odds.
Right. It's not just the diseases and the dementia. There are entire industries devoted to taking advantage of people who aren't as sharp as they used to be.
Yeah, but you're not going to be as sharp as you used to be as you get older, no matter what you do. And that's the reason that in the world of chess, which I've flowed in, and so do a lot of people on the internet, that on the network too, that once you reach a certain age, and there are studies on it, you start declining. You decline at a slow rate, but you're definitely not as sharp as you're in your 20s.
So I finally gave in and joined AARP, which is for older Americans, and so we get their monthly magazine, and they might as well name it Scams Monthly, because 2/3 of the content in that magazine is, here's how people are scamming old people. Here's the latest on how there's romance scams, or somebody accidentally runs into you by mistake on your phone, and then you start talking, and then it turns out you have a lot in common and they really like you, and it ends up with you sending them $12,000 because you're supposedly in love with each other. Some lady got taken for $800,000 in the latest issue of AARP in 3 different romance scams. So you have to get your kids to watch over you to make sure you're not falling for stuff.
Sabrina, we run a show called Timeshares Solutions, and what it is about people that buy timeshares. I didn't know how bad it really is, but timeshares, by the way, generally are really bad. I mean, The thing is that people put their money in, and I thought, well, they put the money in, they walk away. You put your money in, you don't walk away. They still suck out
the fees.
These stupid fees. And I'm going, you've got to be kidding me. So listen to this scam. So you just got scammed by timeshare. And these people that come in aren't being scammed. The average scam is $25,000. But some of them are putting $100,000, $60,000, $150,000 in these stupid timeshares. Then they go to an exit company. Now, the exit company looks like a law firm. Like I saw one, Stonegate firm, but it's not a law firm. It's another scam. And so they pay an exit company and they get scammed again. They lose the money there. And I'm sitting here looking at it because I've gone to a lot of those timeshare things, but I never pulled the trigger because I go, it doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, you know, I don't like going back to the same place. I live in Barcelona, Spain right now. And I travel a lot. Matter of fact, I'll be back in the States. I'll go to North Carolina, Tampa, Salt Lake, New York, and then I come back to here and I go to Budapest. I don't like to stay in one place all the time. So it's always, you got to go back to the same place. Ain't going to happen. But what happens is these people actually buy this stuff and the equity is zero. And I know it looks like you have some place in the Villages, which also is a huge retirement community. I'm from Florida.
The number one in the nation. Retirement community.
I fell out of my chair that they built this huge thing splat in the middle of Florida. Yeah. And being from Tampa, Florida as a native, so I appreciate the people from the north, like you are in West Virginia, that you know, you would have any idea that people would want to live in Central Florida because most people live on the beaches. But they made golf courses and all. It's like a Del Webb Sun City on steroids in the middle.
Yeah, they're growing more and more now.
Yeah, but all those people, because Rick did the demographics on that. Who has the money in the United States? Rick, is it young people or old people?
No, people over 45 years old have 94% of the privately held wealth in America. It's boomers. Boomers own everything. But Sabrina, you mentioned you like methylene blue. What other supplements do you like?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I love the night. I guess my next favorite would be glutathione. You know, that's one thing I was going to say to you guys is that, you know, a lot of people that get as they age don't realize that the joint pains, the erectile dysfunction, all these things, they're like, oh, yeah, it's just my age. No, it doesn't have to be that way. You need to check your hormones. When you replace some of the things that your body made in abundance when it was younger, and like glutathione, everything should function good. It should be good. I mean, I'm 53 and I'm more fit and in shape and less pain than I was even 10 years ago because I do test my body and I supplement for the things that it is deficient in. And that makes a difference. And erectile dysfunction, most men accept that that's going to be a problem. There's absolutely no proof that you can't have erections all the way till you die. At 100, your body wasn't made for one part not to work. It's just there's the smallest vessels are in that region, and you have to do some things to keep it working. You know, we deal with that.
I have another question for you. Do you work out? I mean, do you physically exercise? Do you run? And you do all the good things?
Oh, definitely. Exercise is my best stress reliever, but definitely you have to maintain your muscle mass. That helps tremendously.
Yeah, and exercise helps regulate your blood sugar.
Okay. Because I do find out when you get older, your muscle mass does go down.
It does tend to, but I take supplementation, you know, that helps with that.
Okay, right.
And even 5 years ago, I had gained 30 pounds and I felt tired and weak. And I was questioning myself. I'd been active all my life. And we went ahead and did a hormone test. Well, everything was out of whack. And as soon as I got the replacement, I started feeling like myself again. So I definitely know that we change and we have to, you know, give ourselves vitamin D, vitamin B12, glutathione, those things.
So do you run a health business? Do you have a health business on the side?
Yeah, it's a functional medicine practice, you know, here in Central Florida, where we do hormones and vital nutrients. You know, people are there.
And you're in the villages where they need a lot of help?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and you have to be kind of in tune with your body, which can also be a pain. My wife is very cognizant of how her body works and how she should feel and stuff. So she's always noticing stuff. She had a coworker years ago who would, stumble into work on Monday after a weekend of drinking and doing coke. And I keep saying you should be more like her because that lady just doesn't know how her body should feel at all. And it's like it's probably a lot more comfortable to be like so wrecked that that you don't notice anything.
Yes. I guess.
Maybe we should do a show on alternative medicine. We have a medical show by Dr. Patmos, who Rick and I go on that one. He's board certified in internal medicine, FACP. But he's very traditional.
The traditional is sometimes better because there's just so much iffy information out there that it's easy to get fooled. As you know, when I like a supplement, I try to find a ton of studies that support it. Like metformin is a prescription drug, but it's maybe one of the most widely 60 million Americans take it.
They give you
For diabetes,
Right,
pre-diabetes, but it's
Yep.
also good for you. It helps
Very
fight
affordable.
cancer. And like I'm not diabetic, but I've been taking it for years. I get it on the gray market. Great drug. A few side effects. A zillion studies say it's helpful. You know, curcumin is this other supplement that a bunch of studies say, yeah, it can help.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, we're getting ready to bring curcumin IV drips so we can get it straight into the blood system.
Yeah, that's another trouble with supplements is these drugs are freaking great. You look at the studies in rats, and it's like the rats are living twice as long, but they're injecting the stuff. And then it turns, if you look at another study, if you eat it, your liver knocks it all out, and so you get no benefit.
In some cases it does. You know, I mean, IV nutrients is always the better way because it's 100% absorbed into the body, no breakdown in the GI, you know, but you can't get everything that way, and you have to follow up with at home, you know, with oral.
Yeah, and do you want to be like having to get like, you know, boxes of needles and sticking yourself and making the, you know, making sure that, you know, the mix is right, you know, because, you know, you take a pill, you just eat it, but if it's going to go in your vein, you got to figure out how to liquefy that stuff.
Yeah, and they're doing a lot of things where you can take a little insulin needle and inject it in your fatty tissue, you know, like the peptides and things. They are offering that more. You couldn't do it straight into the vein at home, but they can get it at least sub-Q or intramuscularly.
Yeah. Also, I was listening to you earlier on the broadcast that you said your mother ran away with a 16-year-old. Is that true?
Yes, it is. She was 30 years old, and you know, she married my dad when she was 16, and somehow I've tried to understand she got stuck in that age. But yeah, she did run off. She only stayed with him. We were in West Virginia. She took off with him to live in North Carolina. And after about 4 months, she came back. She's like, I was living with his parents. I couldn't take it. So my dad just took her back every time she'd run away and come back. But that is true.
So I've lived in red states and I've lived in blue states, and you know, the more traditional a state is, the bigger an age gap people find acceptable. When I lived in New Mexico, you know, it was not overly weird for like a 23-year-old works construction to be going out with a 16 or 17-year-old. That was a while back. I think it's probably changed, but you know, some parts of the country, people are like, you know, Jerry Lee Lewis married his, people got upset, but he married his 13-year-old cousin back in the 1950s.
Yeah, well, you know, I was looking at those laws, though. Sometimes the marriage law with consent can be as low as 12 in the United States. I mean,
well, they have Romeo and Juliet laws where, you know, if it's a 28-year-old dating a 15-year-old, that's illegal. But if it's a 16-year-old dating a 15-year-old, well, that's, you know, that's reasonable.
Yeah, but I don't see how they manage financially. I guess that's my problem because I always like to live good. Okay,
I don't see how they manage that. Yeah, I don't. That's impossible. But also the bigger thing that was a question to me when I turned 30, I remember thinking, okay, so would I be interested in a 16-year-old? No. The mentality, you know, I would not want to be with someone that's immature like that. You like some good, intelligent conversation. I don't know what she saw in him, but other than the fact that she's 70 and still is more like a 16-year-old in the mind.
Okay, is there any supplements you can give her?
I do have her on some things, yes. And she did figure out she has some bipolar, and she does take some different things that help with that, and it has helped her.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, a lot of it is mental issues, you know, and I think that's one area that we really don't spend a lot of time in is diagnosing mental conditions, you know, because nobody's physically perfect and no one's mentally perfect, and people do change. It's just like, you know, when I got a hernia, it was like, poof, all of a sudden, bang, bang, you got one. Well, in people's mental states, it can be slow or quick deterioration, and we just don't really devote a lot of time, effort, and resources
Well,
to that.
they've done studies. There was a famous nun study that if you stay active, if you do your daily crossword or Wordle or
Yeah.
something that makes you have to think, it even as your brain might be having Alzheimer's, if Alzheimer's snips the connections between your neurons.
Right.
But if you're mentally active and you're building new connections all the time, you can hold off the symptoms of Alzheimer's. They looked at these nuns who remained sharp right until they were dead at like 94, 95. Then they autopsied their brains. Their brains were Swiss cheese.
Right.
But they weren't affected but being a nun, a lot of the distractions of everyday life are that make you stupid, because there are now studies showing that Americans and probably the rest of the world are getting stupider on average because we've lost the ability to focus and concentrate, because social media, all that stuff, like, is just a constant distraction. Nuns focused, like doing a lot of reading, doing crafts, doing puzzles, staying mentally active, builds connections among your neurons and holds off Alzheimer's.
Are you telling me I should go back and play tournament chess again, Rich?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I keep toying with it, but I haven't played in decades because it's a lot. Frankly, it's a lot of work. It's like doing these stupid IQ tests.
Right. It's
I mean,
mental.
really.
It's
Do I
I
want
go
to
to
run through
lunch.
Ravens matrices again? No, I don't.
yeah.
You
I go
know?
to lunch with
So-
my granddaughter. She's 5, and I take a little mini chess set. I was the only girl on the chess team in high school.
Oh wow.
I loved chess. Yeah.
Oh, I was an addict. So the thing is, I got addicted to it. I still play on the internet, but the people I play, there are no contests. I got to play in international top level competitive chess. If I don't play in that, it's like kind of a waste to play.
You got to figure out a way to make money off of playing. Like if it was poker.
Oh, they're doing it now. Like I was watching Anna Cramling. People don't even know who she is, but if you ever watch on YouTube, Anna Cramling and Haruko Nakaruma. And what they do is they play on Twitch and they get millions of people to watch their stupid games. I'm stronger than Anna. I'm not as strong as Haruko. He's like number 2 in the world. But there's a lot of people that are playing and they're watching their stupid games. They trash talk. By the way, I'm really good at
Right, no,
trash talk.
the Twitch
I can do the
is
trash
all,
talk. I know how to
people
do that.
like to see people do video games, other games,
Right.
and talk shit while they're.
I can do that. I grew up with. I got trained by a expert trash talker, and I started trash talking. Then I trained a couple of FIDE masters to be trash talkers because you can trash talk. You can while you're playing the game, and the people watch that stuff. But I will tell you, when I was playing
trash talk, you can be telling stories from your life. You could be giving investment advice. As long as you're talking while you're playing, people.
I know.
Yeah.
I know the game. It's kind of an interesting thing. But they do. Here's what they have they didn't have when I was playing. They have millions of people. Literally, right? They have 1 million people watching them, and I'm going like, how can you watch a boring chess game? But they're playing speed chess. They're playing the 5-minute chess.
Well,
And
here's
people
another
actually
thing. You could if you could get celebrity guests, you could wallop them at chess while you're interviewing. There's a famous podcast,
That's true.
I think, called Hot Ones, where they bring on celebrity guests and they eat chicken wings in increasingly brutal pepper sauces. So by the end, they're crying, and some might have to go to the hospital from burning their mouths on the spices, and they're answering questions. They're getting all hot and sweaty. They're mopping their faces, and people love that show.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about this because since I got injured, I can spend time thinking rather than just doing. And one thing that we could do on the network is Pod TV has talent, okay, and give cash prizes to people that submit their videos and win their videos. Now, the thing is, if you go to, I think they have America's Got Talent, British Has Talent, and everybody else has talent. But to get on those shows are next to impossible, and they don't give them any money. Okay, which I'm going like.
I've worked on game shows. I've competed on game shows,
Really?
and I sued a game show. And
Yes,
one
I
of the things
sued
that pisses me
Millionaire.
off, the thing that makes me more pissed off than anything about game shows is that only one person on a lot of them walks away with money, and it's crappy money, like Chopped. Chopped is on all the time on the food, whatever network it's on, and first off, they recruit 4 chefs that
Yeah,
are
sure.
at the top of their game out of the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. So first of all, you have to be elite to even make it to the show. And then only one person walks away with money, and it's only 10 grand, which
I know.
is,
Yeah, they're
that's,
real cheap.
there was no
I mean, I got that, but see, here's what we can do, Rick. So put this through your computer IQ brain. All right, that we have Pod TV has talent, okay, and we run shows because our network we run. We have 4 channels on Roku right now. We have travel, entertainment. We have this one, which is Pod TV Live, and we also have 4 channels on Amazon Fire. And we distribute to 150
all right, so
countries.
I have a group of ideas, which is,
All right.
if you look at reality shows,
Yeah.
all reality shows, you could take away the title, and replace it with assholes. Like it basically, like Real Housewives of Everywhere could be just, here's a bunch of assholes from Atlanta, here's a bunch of assholes from Sacramento, whatever. They just find a bunch of people who are likely to be jerks, and then they bounce them off of each other. But they're generally good looking, and not and smartness isn't part of it. I mean, it could be, they could be smart, they could be stupid, but they're not really being recruited. They're being recruited for being, likely to fly off the handle and good looking. But the deal is that smart people are jerks too.
It's true.
So I would like to see like competitions, like America's next smartest person. And
I'm all for doing that. It's because I want to put some new programming on. We're doing pretty good.
You recruit a bunch of smart people, and they might be weirdos, and they're all, you look for the most volatile ones, and you put them in a house together, and they have to solve puzzles to get food, maybe to get clothing. I mean, in Japan, they have a show where a guy starts off in a room naked, and he has to do tasks to even get basic stuff like bedding, clothes, and food. So, I mean.
Yeah, but here's the problem. The minute you move to a house, you bring up your production costs because you have to bring outside cameramen. It just goes.
Yeah, I'm just saying. It doesn't have
to
be a house. It just, you get a bunch of smart lunatics, and you have them work with each other, work against each other.
It would be cute to call, if they're supposed to be assholes and smart, you could call it the smart asses.
Yeah, there you go. But 2 words, it's smart ass. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Well, we're looking for some new programming ideas, and the thing is, we are looking to have contests and then give people money and other prizes. Money is books, even Sabrina's book, because we also have a bookstore on Amazon. So as soon as you get with Mark, they'll put the book on our Amazon store. We have a relationship with Amazon, and they sell the book through the Pod TV network. So, so the thing is, we can give prizes away, Rick, on all of our shows. And that's the name of the game. Like in the chess show, it can be the person who submits the best game, the investment show, the best portfolio for the year. Then I thought, well, we could do Pod TV Has Talent and grab people from all over the world submitting their videos with a chance to actually get on television and a chance to actually win some money, where these other ones really don't have any chance. And those I'm looking at are what I call low production cost, high margin shows, because the real problem you have with any television shows, you can run your production costs up the roof, and then there's no margin for profits. You just can't.
It needs to be a Zoom show. That way you're not.
If you're doing a Zoom show, then it can work. At Zoom or talk shows, because the production costs are low. And that's the reason.
The biohacking is really, popular right now. It would be great if you guys could do a show.
What is popular, Sabrina?
The biohacking.
It's where like tech bros do it, tech billionaires do it.
You're layering your there's a big interest in people wanting to live longer with less disease, and so there's all these different alternatives, and when you stack those, some of them work really good together. It makes profound reverses in the premature aging. You could do show after show with things like that.
Yeah, well, no, here's how it works. You could do show after show like that. I just own the network. I don't do any of the shows. We've got 50 producers.
Here's the show, Who Dies Last? The trouble is that it's a show that takes 70 years to play. So because you don't know if any of this stuff is going to work until it's the year 2060 and you're not dead yet.
Yeah, there we go. You lasted till 2060. Good.
But
good,
there's
good
lots
for
of
you.
tests that show, all these tests that show you can see what your real age is, to see what you're reversing, that there's so much available out there now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, see, I know nothing about it, but if you know something about it,
here's like one of the craziest biohacks that's done by rich people. A lot of times in Silicon Valley, these computer guys, they will recruit teenagers and get transfused with teenage blood. And that to me seems a little bit like quackery, but there might be something to it. But
they're doing fecal implants. Fecal implants are
fecal implants work. People get bad gut by
implants.
The deal is, if you get the wrong bacteria in your digestive system, it causes you a world of hurt. And so they will take cleaned up poop from somebody who's got a really good digestive system, and they'll stick it up your butt, and they will infect you with good bacteria. When you take probiotics, that's a little bit like a fecal implant, except you're taking it in the form of a gummy, or you're flooding your body with good bacteria.
It sounds really gross, but if it works,
yeah, but it works. That's a therapy that has been proven to work.
Okay, I like things simple. Okay, so if you have an idea for a show, notice my email address, justpalavida@gmail.com. Just email me, and we'll see if we can get a show going on the Pod TV network. Our latest two shows, VC Masters by Professor Salman Azhar. He's a professor at Duke University, is doing really well. And of course, the Timeshare Show. Those are our two additions. It's doing really well. And I'm addicted to it because I watch these people get crushed financially by buying these stupid timeshares. And I'm just, they probably buy them you're in Florida. That's one of the places where they sell them.
There's tons of them here. My dad actually was one of the suckers. He spent $37,000 on a timeshare in Key West.
Okay. And listen, see, we're coming out with an alternative timeshare solution using what they call an annuity contract. Okay. It's an annuity vacation plan. It's really simple. And I use it in my pension business all the time. I've used it for 23 years. There's no fees and commissions taken out. I had to write an article for the Journal of Accounts because I couldn't believe it. I said, it's really thin. You use it in pensions. But basically, you put that $37,000 in a tax-deferred annuity contract, guaranteed to earn no less than 1 to 3%. So if the market goes down, you earn 1 to 3. If the market goes up, you get a piece of the S&P 500. You get whichever is greater. So you always make money. All right, now here's the key. Every year you can withdraw 10% without a penalty, or $3,700 a year. If he had put $37,000 in it, okay. Yeah. What vacation can you buy for $3,700 for a week? Let me tell you, you can buy a lot of vacations. So we're going to show them all the packages that you can buy for $3,700 a week, and it's much
without the fees. Because his fees that started at $900 are now $1,700 a year.
Yeah, I know, but see, this has no fees.
Right.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Sabrina, get this. There are no fees in these tax-deferred annuities. What happens is this. Now, this is going to be hard for timeshare people to understand. They will pay you money, and you could do whatever you want with it. That's how it works. It's like buying a CD at a bank, except insurance companies offer it. They're called tax-deferred annuities. And I've been using them in qualified plans.
You can combine Sabrina's ideas and your ideas, because the way to beat an annuity is to not die. Some annuities that pay.
Well, that's if you annuitize it. We don't annuitize ours.
So some annuities that pay you the same amount every year, however long you live, they're based on somebody doing actuarial work saying the company is going to make money because most people will die by age 85, say. Social Security has a break-even date of 82. Social Security thinks you're going to die at 82. So if you sign up for an annuity and you live to 98, you've beaten the annuity because you've got
that's if you annuitize it. We don't annuitize our annuities. What we do is we distribute it out as a lump sum when people go to retire. I had no idea, because it's designed to pay out what you just said, a lifetime income, but it's no refund. So if you die, you're screwed. But they have an option to take the lump sum amount. So a lot of cases, what do you want, the lump sum or the lifetime income? They all take the lump sum. When you take the lump sum, you're never run into that problem because you just roll it to your IRA and you have tons of money. So I think we can help a lot of these people that have bought timeshares and put them in a better situation
How
using
do
an
we get them out of the
annuity.
timeshare though? How do we?
That would be a subject of a future conversation. That is the problem. Because I think we're at the hour and Mark's about to kick us out.
Yeah, we're at the hour, and I need you to go over to chess because I'm having computer problems. But I'll get us out of here. But if you'll go over to
You
chess,
gotta-
Nice to meet you, Sabrina.
You too. Thank you guys. Have a good day.
have a good one. I'll get us out of here, and he'll get us over to chess. But Sabrina, that was Rick, that was a great conversation. I'm going to get us out of here and everything. So that was a fun conversation.